One thing I often see people confused about is artificial gravity in science fiction. Ironically, it seems that the more realistic the depiction of gravity is, the more it confuses casual viewers. I realise that perhaps most of you will be well aware of most of this stuff, but I'm going to lay it out anyway for anyone who's a little unclear. Okay, so basically we have three methods of artificial or simulated gravity that we see in science fiction. Centrifugal artificial gravity or spin gravity, linear artificial gravity or thrust gravity, and technological artificial gravity, which a lot of people like to call magic gravity. Let's start with that one. The grand majority of sci-fi stories employ this kind of explanation for their artificial gravity. It basically relies on the idea that in the world in which the sci-fi story is set, a piece of technology has been developed which allows for the manipulation of gravity. It allows people to install grav plating or something similar and set up a gravitational pull of 1G or close to it inside their spacecraft or station. This way the art team and the writers can all design all of their ships and stations based off real-life naval ships and aircraft, where up is up and down is down. And if it's a show or a movie, then they can record all of the scenes on sets that look just like the inside of a submarine or something. And it's all very easy for the viewer to understand. You'll notice that in most of these sci-fi stories, very few details will ever be given about the gravity systems. They'll talk about the laser cannons and the hyperdrive or whatever as much as they can, but everyone just takes the gravity for granted and never talks about how it works. And it's always the very last thing to break down. Even when the ship is a smouldering ruin, the gravity is still always working. This is because the existence of this kind of technology opens up a whole new can of worms. If we could manipulate gravity like this, we would not be using it just to create artificial gravity inside our spacecraft. We'd be using it to propel our spacecraft, among 1,000 other crazy things that this tech would allow us to do. If they go into too much detail and reveal that you can literally just set up any kind of gravity field in any space or direction on a whim, then immediately you'd have people like me, and I'm sure most of you, wondering why they don't have gravity railguns launching projectiles at ludicrous speeds, or gravity drives pushing their ships around when they're not travelling at FTL. Now, obviously I understand the need for this kind of pseudoscience in a lot of SF stories. It simplifies everything, it makes it easier to focus on the characters and the unfolding stories, and it makes sure that nobody in the audience is confused. But I think it would be nice to see a few more instances of realistic artificial gravity in mainstream science fiction. For a good enough writer, it doesn't do too much to detract from the storytelling, and it would allow more casual audiences to perhaps learn something about physics and space travel that they would otherwise never have learned. Okay, so next up is centrifugal gravity, or spin gravity. This is something I've had to explain to people a lot, because perhaps reasonably, it does bend the mind a little bit. So basically, spin gravity works by installing an enormous spinning centrifuge hab on your ship or station. Inside the arms of the hab are the various interior rooms and hallways of the craft, and these rooms and hallways are built with their floors against what we would call the outside of the ship. So everyone's feet are constantly pointing outwards from the ship. And then the hab spins up at such a speed that the centrifugal force exerted on the people inside it is equal to the pull that we feel from Earth's gravity. This way, as long as the hab is spinning at a fixed speed, everything inside will seem fairly Earth-like, with a clear up and down and constant simulated gravity. This has one particular advantage over thrust gravity, which we'll cover in a moment, and that is that a vessel using a centrifuge hab can remain completely stationary and still have internal gravity, so long as the hab spins, making this the best realistic option for space stations and other fixed installations. Okay, so last up is linear artificial gravity or thrust gravity. This is perhaps the simplest means of simulating gravity with realistic technology. A vessel employing thrust gravity would be built much like a high-rise building, tall and narrow, with all of its engines mounted on the bottom facing down. All of the internal rooms and hallways would sit with their floors facing towards the engines and their ceilings towards the nose. When the ship accelerates to 1G of acceleration, the floor of the room is now being propelled upward toward the feet of the crew and the passengers at exactly the right speed to simulate Earth-like gravity, while in actuality the deck of the ship is being pushed up into your legs and feet rather than the mass of the planet pulling you down. Developing something like this that would work over extreme distances is not yet possible, but it's not a particularly outlandish thing to aim for. This would prioritise engine efficiency over engine power. If an engine could be built that could continue to burn at 1G non-stop towards its destination, flip at the halfway point and decelerate for the rest of the journey, then the crew would experience constant Earth-like gravity as a happy side effect, without any specific artificial gravity system even being necessary. There are some downsides to this method. As mentioned earlier, a ship operating on thrust gravity would not be able to maintain the simulation of gravity if the ship was to stop moving, and speeds higher or lower than 1G would lead to either near weightlessness or tremendous bodily stress for the crew. and if the vessel ever needed to employ any kind of sharp or sudden maneuvers, even as simple as flipping the ship to begin a braking burn, everyone on board would need to be securely fastened into their seats for the duration of the maneuver. So in conclusion, I wouldn't hold out hope for any kind of Star Wars-style gravity plating at any point in our future. Though of course we have no idea what kind of crazy elements and minerals we might one day find or encounter, so anything's possible. But I think works like The Expanse, 2001 and Babylon 5 are proof that realistic means of artificial gravity can be constantly present in a science fiction series without detracting too much from the experience, and perhaps give us a better impression of how the future of space travel might actually look.